I'm going to send a feed to YouTube. All right, YouTube is getting a feed. Cool. 1 second. I didn't want that, it's still kind of an awkward glow, but we're just going to have to deal with it. Alright, I'm ready. You ready? Hit record.
I'm ready. We are now recording.
Perfect. I believe YouTube went live like instantly.
Nice.
It did. Oh, but it's a private video. I'm going to make it a public video now. Oh, looks like my co-host has arrived.
Just in time.
Just in time. Bubba, you can't join me right now, man. Nope, not going to stop you? Okay. Alright, hello everybody. This is another episode of You'll Never Talk Alone, coming to you from the brand spanking new internet. It's just the internet. We're recording over the internet, as always. I'm your friend Joseph Craven. That's Alex Level. Alex, how are you?
I think we have talked before this that we were both pretty tired, but we're gonna do this.
Actually, feeling a lot better. I'm hopped up on some Little Caesars cheap pizza, and it's that $5 energy boost that I needed so badly in my life that I never knew I needed until now. And it's it's really just heartburn. I got so much cheap pizza heartburn going on that it's giving me energy somehow because I'm hurting, I'm suffering, and I'm just thriving off of that.
That makes sense. Pain is a motivator.
It is. Thank you. I believe that's a direct quote from Jurgen Klopp, actually. I believe he directly said pain is a motivator. Anyway, speaking of pain, half our squad is injured. That's the general thought process of this particular episode here that we wanted to get into, that we wanted to discuss some. So, it feels like we need to chat about that a little bit here. 2 victories in the past week, which is always a pleasant thing to deal with, along with a little bit of offhand retribution on Everton following a dirty, sloppy match that they played against us in the derby. They got something right back at them in the process. But let's, I guess the overall question, I guess we'll start off with here, Alex, is when you look at the past week, you look at the injuries that we knew about going into the matches, the injuries that were picked up, say, by Fabinho, who could not play the entire match in the Champions League. You have these factors going on there. How do you feel about the team's performance, all things considered? So many players out, so much going on wrong in the past couple of weeks as far as the health and injury status goes.
It's about as good as it can be. I feel like every time we have kind of a chat during any match, the comments we always make are, oh, we look like a team that just made 6 substitutions from the last game.
Yeah.
Oh, we look like a team that's missing a 30 million pound midfielder and the best defender in the world.
Yeah.
We just, it's very clear that we are missing people and the matches are not entertaining. Like, number 7, our 7th Champions League title is going to be the most boring run ever. Just a series of 1-0s, 2-0s, just slog fests. But, we, much like every team in Europe right now, just look exhausted.
Yeah.
Because we are playing every 3 to 4 days, and we're missing people because of COVID, and we're missing people because of terrible tackles, and we're missing people because the human body isn't meant to exert itself this much, like
right.
at elite athlete level, every couple of days. So it's not free flowing, and it's not necessarily the Liverpool we've come to know and expect to see just dominate teams, but it's about all we can reasonably expect from players that are just burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, and not just players that are burning the candle at both ends, but players that are burning the candle at both ends that aren't necessarily supposed to be always burning the candle at both ends.
Right.
You know, not necessarily always supposed to be the players that play as significant a role as they are. Not always supposed to be like that. But they're doing it well enough. They're holding their own. We're not seeing, when we see a drop-off in talent, we're not seeing it have some sort of like overwhelmingly massive impact on the performance that goes on. And I think that says a lot about our preparation, outside of matches. It says a lot about our ability to face adversity well. Because, obviously we talked a lot about how in the past couple of years in particular, we've really seen the mentality monsters that the team is. And we've kind of seen the ability, like, let's be honest, last season, the title-winning season, we had a lot of breaks go our way, which helped along with that, which is what happens in sports, it just does. And right now, we're kind of seeing a little bit more reality. Sometimes you just have a lot of injuries pile up at once. It just happens sometimes, and it sucks. But, that's one of the reasons you prepare the way that you prepare. And we're seeing that with this team. So all in all, like it's a weird amount of positives, which is just bizarre. But I appreciate that about this squad. It's not always the prettiest things, like you're saying. I think I jokingly said that we will win Champions League number 7. They'll put an asterisk next to the title of the record books, and like the next generation will be like, "Daddy, why did something controversial happen?" And we'll just be like, "Nah, it's just boring as heck." Yeah. It's just like we won it all, and like everyone was kind of like, "All right, cool, yeah, that was good." It wasn't a lot to watch.
Scored 8 goals overall. Yes.
Right. That was it. Every match from here on out is going to be 0-0 victory on penalties. And like once we get out of the group stage, that's what's happening. I can already tell you that. Okay, so does anyone stand out, you feel like, who has taken up the reins a bit? Maybe someone that has been a sub that has come in, or someone that is a regular player that has taken more responsibility. Is there anyone you feel like deserves a little bit of praise for what they've been able to do?
In the past 2 matches,
Mm-hmm.
he definitely deserves praise because he's scored 2 goals that have turned out to be the winner, and that's Diogo Jota. Like, he's slotted in magnificently well. You can see just exactly why we wanted to bring him in. I mean, he's intelligent on the ball. It's weird to say for professionals, but it is something you still have to say. He's so two-footed. It's very hard to tell what is his dominant foot. And it's surprisingly rare for players to be that two-footed. I mean, everyone at the top level can use their offense, but he is ambidextrous, truly.
Yeah.
And he's so intelligent with where he takes up spaces. He's always open, and he offers something similar to the front 3 when the front 3 aren't playing. It's one of those cases where we've always thought that we needed a different look if the front 3 weren't playing, but this is one of those cases where we needed something that's exactly the same
Yeah.
that we were missing. So kudos to him. Kudos to Shaqiri as well in the Michelin match. Like he went from nearly leaving the club and being out for a year to coming in and looking like he belonged and looking like the player that we always tended to praise when he came on.
Mm-hmm.
Just light up a match and just be a wild card. He definitely did that. I mean, he sent one of their defenders back to Denmark, but unfortunately his legs weren't long enough to then get the shot away. But I mean, he, especially in the second half of that Michelin, he truly came alive. And then I will take the only other 2 players that you could possibly praise are the 2 fullbacks. They still, Andy has been solid all season. Trent started a little rocky, but he has come back into form and is looking like himself. So it's going to be a shame when they both pull every muscle in their legs from running mile after mile every match. Those are the four people that really stand out to me.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I will say it was great to see Roberto Firmino actually be a goal scorer, which we obviously, and it's the dumbest debate in the world, but talking about is he a good forward or not? Yeah, I mean, he's not your classic goal scoring striker, and so people tend to forget or people want to ignore how good he is in everything he does because he's not supposed to be a striker. He wasn't when the team brought him in, and he still isn't really supposed to be a striker in that regard. So it's always refreshing whenever he does net a goal, because at least you're able to say then, hey guys, don't forget he still can actually score. But yeah, going back to Jota in particular, because he has been, I think, the individual standout in the past couple of weeks or couple of matches. We always are very specific in our targets. We see it with Fabinho. We see it with going after Virgil and nobody else. We see it with Alisson. Like, we have specific targets. Most of the time, though, even a little bit with Virgil, not really as much with Alisson, but even a little bit with Virgil, like most of the time, it takes a little bit for those targets to find their role. Just look at Minamino right now, right? He's more confident, but he still isn't always as comfortable with like his role quite yet when he has to have an extended run. It'll come. We always use the example of Gini Wijnaldum when he first arrived. Just did not seem to quite fit. Really obviously pulled it together massively. And I think it's rare that we get a guy like Jota who is an instant contributor. And in particular is an instant contributor in an area that isn't necessarily a need. Like, we needed Virgil van Dijk. That was obvious. We needed Alisson in goal. That was obvious. We didn't necessarily need to replace anyone in the attack, but we did need someone who was a cover guy who can come in and instantly fit the role. Exactly what you're saying. Like, he instantly covers whatever he needs to out of the attacking three. And I just can't say enough about how awesome that is to see it again, because we haven't had it, haven't always had it, and normally is some sort of learning curve to most of the players we bring in. He's ready. And so it just shows you how good a surprise purchase it was out of the blue. But it shows you how good and smart a purchase it was to have him brought in like that. And I mean, obviously we're going to see that with Thiago more when he's back, because we've already seen a little bit of it. So let's specifically these matches, and we'll start with Sheffield, obviously, because you and Will did have a chance to actually cover the Ajax match last week. I realized I had this moment when we started recording that I was like, wait, do we need to talk about 3 matches? Do we need to talk about Ajax as well? And then I was like, wait, no. I just wasn't here last week. But going to that Sheffield United match in particular, it was not the prettiest, but it was honestly a dominant match. The only, obvious negative thing being that there was a questionable penalty given. So your impression of that match, and well, start off with that penalty, because that might be the only thing that really stands out or in Sheffield's favor. Honestly, Liverpool really, holding every important stat line from possession to shots and obviously goals. So tell me a little bit about your impression of that match.
Yeah, they had a few chances, I would say, and there were like 1 or 2 times where I was just so thankful that it was Alisson in goal, not Adrian, because Alisson got such strong hands. There was one in particular that I think there was a cross played in, and one of their players hit it first time on the volley, and Alisson parried it pretty much straight out for a throw-in. Just like you're not going to get that from many goalkeepers to get not only save it but make sure that nothing happened afterwards. So there was that. There was the penalty, which on one hand, like I'm okay with that being a penalty because it was iffy, but like by the letter of the law, when an action takes place on the line, it's technically in the box. And when it's an action that is around the box that can be viewed as carrying into the box, that's how it's supposed to be called. However, that has never been the case this season, last season. They never give us that call. They never give anybody else that call except Kane, Vardy, Zaha, Sterling. Like those kind of momentum carried into the box. I mean,
yeah.
this was a less intense version of the one, and this is not. I feel like it happens to Mane more than anybody else. Where Mane's on the edge of the box, he's turning, he's dribbling in, he's carrying into the box. The foul itself occurs outside of the box, much like this one. But the momentum, the action, the bodies, even like leaning into the box, and they never give the call. They're always like free kick, edge of the area. So I just want them to make up their minds.
Yeah.
Like that's the fine. If that's the interpretation, fine. Call that from now on. Don't waffle back and forth because I mean we're trying to get to a consistent point where we can know what to expect. But this I don't even know what this was, and I don't know why. Well, I know why because they tell them not to, even though they're supposed to. But if that was the case, why didn't Mike Dean just go look at the monitor? Why didn't they tell him to go look at the monitor? That's the whole point of it, is to go check it out. Just to say, hey, take another look at this, not the person in the booth making the calls.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, and we've said it since last year when we really started to see everything happening VAR related. We've been talking about how it just seems like the English officials and the league just seem to have a different interpretation of the usage of VAR, the rules themselves, than other major leagues that have already done it, that already have it in place, that it's already been a part of. And it's just bizarre that there seems to be some sort of, I don't know, a gap, that much of a difference in like rule interpretation, between leagues. And I get it that it tends to be what happens between different leagues, that they want to have, standards that fit their style of play, all of that. But most of the time when you see that like between professional and college and high school, those ranks. You don't normally see it between giant leagues around the world, and different usages of rules or interpretation. It's just kind of bizarre. But we've said it for a while that it just seems like there needs to be some sort of little bit of cleaning up, better organization in the English game when it comes to that. And maybe this is just another example. I don't know. That was a bit of more of a mini rant than I intended it to be. So I apologize. Let's go back to the match. Tell me more about it.
First of all, I'm going to need you to calm down. You're clearly way too angry.
It's this Little Caesars pizza, man. It's slapping hard right now, up and down my thorax up here. It's just killing.
Hopefully this part will calm you down. Although it probably won't, because it's one thing that stood out in the Sheffield match at first, and then it kind of continued on into the Midtjylland match, was that we were trying out a new formation. And it wasn't really so much governed by us wanting to completely transform our style of play, which I think we are eventually going to try to do this season once we're not missing 800,000 people.
Right, once we actually have people around again.
But it was a bit of a change. It was more like the way we lined up and played in that Lincoln Cup match. Where there's a lot of kind of things to take from that match.
The good old days, if you will.
The greatest game ever played this season. But it's more of that 4-2-3-1,
Mm-hmm.
one player floating around, doing kind of whatever, and more of a free roll. And then it just kind of evolves with basically playing two defenders by the end of it. But nominally, it's the 4-2-3-1 with like a free 10-ish. It works. It was a little bit rocky at first because there hadn't been a time, I don't think, at all where our main front three and Jota had been on the field at the same time. So there was clearly kind of a teething period, which cleared up a little bit in the second half. We started looking a lot better, and it led to the first goal before the half movement. The second goal, a similar story. But it worked even less so in the Michelin match in the first half. I mean, the people were just getting in each other's way left and right.
Yeah.
They had no clue like where they were supposed to be. You could really see that breakdown between Taki and Origi. They just were both like, every time they would want to do something, the other person was there. And Shaq would get lumped into that too, and that's why it looked so flat and stagnated and stuttering, just because they were. Most of the time, they were saying like, "Oh, excuse me, pardon me, sir," like, walking past each other in a crowded hallway.
Right, yeah, just bumping into each other. It looked like my dogs trying to get from one end of the house to the other, just constantly. Oh God.
Yeah, and it's very similar match patterns of Rocky adapting to, okay, we finally figured it out. Now we scored, but it's not like the match is that much better to watch. But we're winning. So that's kind of the overflow, the pattern of both matches, and I'm wondering if we'll see more of that or less of that. Who knows if like Thiago or Matip will be fit for this weekend? So I don't know if we can expect to see more of that or something new. Who knows?
Are you okay with it? I mean, obviously we're okay with the results. I mean, duh. Yeah. But when you look at the way we've had to adapt. Because I look at it and I like the versatility. You know, I like the fact that we are once again showing, because there was always that span of time where it was, oh, you want to beat Liverpool, just park the bus, they can't break it. Then we started breaking it, and people were like, okay, well, if you want to beat Liverpool, you got to do this to them. You got to just go anywhere near Jadon Lovren, and you'll be fine. You'll win somehow, you know. And we started to break all those things and break them down and started to improve on all the weaknesses and showing the versatility where we can win in different situations, different tactics. And this is another example of that, but it's not exactly the prettiest example of it. And it may or may not be, who knows, a sustainable example of it as well. Are you okay with it, or do you feel like we could still do better than what we've had to do the past few matches?
A little bit of both. I'm okay with it.
Good cop-out answer. I respect it, though. I do.
It's a lovely day. That's my answer. It's going to be interesting to see if it continues, because I mean, when we had more players fit, that's not really how we approached the Everton match.
Right.
But it is definitely something that probably needs to happen overall. Is just to be able to play in a different manner and keep teams guessing, because I mean, we'd seen a bit that the main way we like to play, when it works, it just steamrolls everyone. But when it gets figured out, something needs to change a little bit to break the ice and get around those roadblocks. So I'm curious to see. I kind of feel like we're going to see it more and more, and not just because everyone's injured and we're restricted because of who we have. I feel like we're slowly but surely going to try to evolve to the point where we can have at least two approaches. We've got our main DNA way and this new way that, I mean, when we saw it work really well against a team that we were way better than, it worked really well. So there is potential for it to work, and some of the players are showing that they can fit into it. So I'm excited to see it, because I feel like it can lead to a lot more goals, which we need.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I started pulling up the names of some of the rumors that have come across as potential like transfer targets and everything. And I wasn't going to jump to that topic quite yet, but I've become so distracted and enamored by the topic that I feel like maybe it's just time to go ahead. I don't know how you're feeling, but maybe we just go ahead and jump into it. At this point, some 20-something minutes of the episode, why not start just wildly speculating?
Just do it, yeah.
Just do it. Why not? But the thing that distracted me, that cracked me up about it, was I was trying to pull up information on Ozan Kabak, who is one of the center back targets for us. And if you search for him right now, his Wikipedia blurb on Google says Ozan Muhammad Kabak is a Turkish professional footballer who plays as a center back for the English club Liverpool in the English Premier League. So
We don't have to speculate.
yeah, apparently we don't have to speculate. Somebody went ahead and made it official, officially unofficial. But anyway, he currently at Schalke is one of the targets that we have in our minds here. I don't know if I'm going to come anywhere close on pronouncing Upamecano. Dang it. I wasn't confident going into his name. But he another one of the big targets. He's with them Red Bulls. That's how we say that. Those are two center back targets in particular whose names have popped up quite a bit in rumors. We wanted to get to any potential David Alaba rumors right now. Let's talk about these two guys as being two guys whose names are showing up. Do you give much credibility to their names popping up in these rumors? Do you think it's kind of just wishful thinking because they're, two center backs that a lot of big clubs are probably going to be making moves to sign at some time in the near future? I mean, do you put any credibility into the rumors at all?
I normally wouldn't have, but this summer with the Thiago saga has proven that Liverpool transfers are back to a point where if there is a link to a player, it could be real. Because there was a time where anyone who was linked in the press, that would never happen because we just didn't do it. We threw up a bunch of smoke screens and then snuck through with someone else. But now it seems like those are cropping up more and more, and they seem a little bit more trustworthy. I mean, more of the Liverpool briefed journalists are talking about those players specifically and either saying like why they would fit or why they wouldn't fit or who else would fit based around these players. So it seems like there is something concrete there. I mean, apart from that, there's Schalke's need for money and Kabak being a player that they could make money off of, and there's our kind of growing relationship with the Red Bull sports franchise and being able to negotiate with them, and Upamecano being one of the most highly rated young center backs in the sport. So, I mean, I think there is credibility there, and especially with the nature of Van Dijk's injury, his age, all of those factors, and the fact that even after he got hurt, everyone else has continued to get hurt.
Right.
It seems like it is forcing a change of plans because it's not going to change. It's not like all of a sudden the Premier League is going to be like, okay, now you can use 5 subs so you can rotate anymore. They're not going to change that midway through the season like this. So we're just going to have to adapt to that. And like we've talked about, we do buy when there's value. And it could be a case where even if the price is high, there's value in not playing a 21-year-old with 98 minutes of first-team soccer under his belt in a league title defense season. Yeah, exactly. So let's go and let's try to bring in a 22-year-old or a 20-year-old to play instead. I believe we were talking a little bit about Upamecano last week, right? Just you and I texting about, because we were reading lists of possible targets, and he seems to be the most intriguing out of all of them. But because he's the most intriguing out of them so far, you got to think that he's also going to be one that is going to be highly targeted by other clubs. I know just looking at it, Leipzig and United playing each other, and apparently before that match, many people close to United were saying, "Hey, United needs to go after this kid. Hey, United should sign this kid. He'll sign he'll fix their many defensive woes." My God, that team is they can't guard anyone. You and I might be able to score a couple of goals against United, but anyway, they're like, he might be able to solve them. But then I also see, which
kind of a funny tweet, oddly enough, said that Marcus Rashford might have shaved off about 15 million of Upamecano's value tonight. But so anyway, all that to say, he seems to be generating buzz from lots of teams, and maybe not quite as much surrounding Kabak right now. And so I guess the question here is, do you, in what you might know about them and their situations, do you feel like there is a definitive, like, oh, we should go after this one and not the other one sort of situation here?
Upamecano is kind of further along at this point in terms of development. He's got more competitive, like battling for European places, playing in the Champions League kind of experience under his belt. He's leading the defense already. He's a full France international. He fits the bill of what we expect from our center backs a little bit more. And there's a reason that every team in the world wants to sign him. So I think he would be the primary target if we can make the deal work. But that said, we have a habit of signing players from relegated teams, and Schalke are doing their best to make sure that they're relegated by the end of November by just being terrible all the time. So, I mean, it's hard to really accurately judge, I would say, how his development is going. Like, you can see him doing some things well, and you can see the glimpses of, like, wow, this is why he was so highly sought after when he was leaving Stuttgart, I believe it was. And this is somehow Schalke ended up getting him, but then fell off a cliff. So, I mean, there is something there, but there would be a lot more rebuilding. One, his confidence. Two, an understanding of a totally different style of play. And three, they've fluctuated between back fours, back threes. I don't even know if he knows exactly what his best center back interpretation is. So, I mean, he's definitely got a lot of potential, but Upamecano is kind of a step above at this point, and just further along and would be worth a bigger investment because there's more of a chance of him stepping straight in and being what we need.
Yeah, it seems that way. Part of that as well, there's the aspect of him being, Upamecano, that is, being a guy who plays in a faster-paced setting than what you often see in the Premier League itself, which it seems like, that would be good for us because we are a team that thrives having, the quick pace and the quick reaction time that maybe a lot of other teams don't tend to do in the Premier League. And I believe I read that as kind of being a potential knock against him because it's like, oh, it's coming to a slower league. How's it going to affect? Seems like that would fit this team. So I don't really understand what that being a critique with him. But it does make you wonder maybe a little bit of, okay, do either of these guys replace anything that you get with Virgil van Dijk? Or are they just kind of like entirely their own animal, and are they a little bit more like a Joel Matip who will move forward a little bit more, defensive mid Joel Matip. But it makes you wonder a little bit about, like, just style wise, like, do they actually replace some of what we're missing when Van Dijk is out? Obviously, no one replaces Van Dijk. That man is a god on the pitch. But do they bring? And that's what my biggest wonder is there someone who is a little bit more of a just absolute aerial defensive rock that we can target, that fits that obvious gap we have in our aerial defense whenever Van Dijk is out, something like that. That's what I start to wonder is, do they fit the need? Or obviously they fit a need. Everyone's hurt. Do they fit the specific need of, this? I'm finding the stats I was looking for right now. But The Athletic, because we got to plug The Athletic. of course, had a lot of charts and graphs about their ability in duels and things like that. And running down the list, like Upamecano had, real great with a lot of open play headers, makes for a good target. But Kabak is much better in set play headers, and it's just kind of odd because Van Dijk is a king of both. But you got to wonder what do they bring that replaces some of that we don't get with a Matip, what we don't get with a Joe Gomez, that sort of thing. Oh man, I feel like I just said the same thing a whole lot, but either way, that's what makes it a difficult thing. That's why I'm glad that obviously there's a lot of people that get paid big bucks to analyze these things. And one of those people, of course, being, Jurgen Klopp himself. He knows the type of player that he wants to target, so I have to trust him with it. But I just wonder who in these potential names that are really popping up would really fit. The other question here being that there have been a lot more rumors surrounding David Alaba, who has reportedly been a little frustrated with Bayern, maybe even some potential disagreements between club and his manager or something like that. Sorry, not manager, club and his agent. That sort of thing. So there's been some rumors about him possibly being one of the targets coming in pretty soon. Big question there being, do we need a player like that? Do we? What's your take on any of those rumors that are showing up now?
It would be an immediate task for agent Thiago to move Alaba over to the club. I mean, he is a player that you kind of always need, in the sense that he's very, very, very good and is one of the rare players that can actually play any position on the field and do it about as well as anyone that would specialize in that role. You look at every position that he's played at Bayern and even at his national team. I mean, I think he's played every position except for goalkeeper and maybe right back or something. He's extremely versatile. He's extremely intelligent. He's extremely skillful. He scores so many set pieces. I mean, with him and Trent, we would average just an absurd amount of goals off of set pieces, I think. So if there was a possibility to sign him and not be fiscally irresponsible, which seems to be a big motivator for the club, it would be a fantastic signing. And I mean, like you alluded to, there's been breakdowns between his camp and the club. There's been some pretty terrible things said by a certain tax dodging chairman, honorary chairman at this point of said club. So
right.
It seems like we've gotten to a breaking point with those two. I mean, I think I saw today that another offer for Alaba, he rejected it. So it seems like he could be available. Yeah. It would be one.
Or at the very least, it seems like he does not want to stay there much longer than he has to. Right. we can kind of infer that much with some level of confidence.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think while he's not a natural center back, he's been able to play it and do it well. And it would be assuming that the wackiness of the league doesn't continue forever. He would be coming into a team where they have a lot of the ball and tend to dominate the match and find a way to break through, and that could theoretically be a good fit. So, I mean, he would be one that if the chance to get him appeared, we should get him if we can.
Yeah, he's definitely got the name recognition. He's definitely one of those guys that shows up a lot on FIFA as having been one of the large transfer targets on the window. He's definitely always one of those guys. And so whenever that happens, that the name pops up, and you're like, oh, well, you got to pay attention to it. You got to maybe, oh yeah, absolutely, we should go after. When the name pops up, you notice it. It doesn't always mean that it's a good business move, which is always, as you said, going to be a major factor for the club itself, the owners of the club in particular, who, as we know, are shrewd businessmen, sometimes ruthless, which is a topic, a whole nother topic we can get into some other time. But yeah, so it's like, is it worth it? Does it actually fit? Does a move like that really improve the team enough, or is it as much of a priority as maybe it seems like it might be at the time, or it could be? Those are the questions, though, where you have to reel yourself in a little bit, thinking from just seeing the name and instantly going, oh yeah, absolutely, we got to do it. Because sometimes the bigger names, the more established players just don't quite pan out in a new situation like they should, or like you hope that they will. This seems to be one that we would have a lot of value with. It's one that I personally don't quite know how important it would be, though, considering we went after Thiago and we went after Jota very secretly. And it's like, would Alaba, being able to play so many different roles, would he be able to find a role that he would be happy with playing, right off the bat and contributing in that way? Because it becomes a bit more of a log jam at times with him. Now, I don't know. Maybe he'd be perfectly fine being our Champions League left back or something. Who knows? Who knows what he even wants? But he's not like at the tail end of his career or anything. So it's tricky. This might be one of those things where maybe it's worth trying to negotiate a good move for the summer and not like an immediate rush type of thing. But I don't know. It kind of caught me off guard to hear some of the rumors, I guess, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, it's still weird to see us linked to players with that kind of name recognition and players that just won the Champions League right after we did. I mean, it's not something we're used to. It gets you excited, and I mean, one of the only solutions we have to our current injury problem is to just keep throwing bodies at the problem.
Right.
Because you can't really do all that much to make someone's muscle fiber grow back faster, stop being broken, like repair someone's ligaments. I mean, there's only so much you can do.
So much you can do legally. I know a guy, though. Y'all just give me a call. All right, I know a guy.
Yeah, so I mean, apart from the guy that that can heal people magically, I mean...
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's not a steroid thing or anything. He's a mystic healer. He's amazing.
And I mean, you also got to think about the people we've been looking to move on, and what the squad kind of, not necessarily refresh, but reinvention looks like, and who becomes part of that squad and what we want to make of it, and where the place. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's much more fun to talk about this stuff than it is to talk about some of our very not too entertaining recent matches. I will say that. Yeah,
exactly. Plus, it's also fun to talk about this stuff and not be talking about like how some fans want us to go bring Connor Cody back. Like, that's not exactly thrilling talk. It's fun to be able to be in a position where the club is linked with names like David Alaba, or the fact that the club was even linked with Thiago to begin with. That's exciting stuff. The club is able to pull off a surprise transfer for Diogo Jota, who, I mean, I get that he's not like worldwide headlines, what an incredible like transfer, but he's a good player, and we all knew he was a good player when we made the move for him. And so when the signing is announced, we're like, oh, it's fun to be in that position. And along with that, obviously we don't really know how much longer Jurgen wants to stick around, and if he'll be like, wanting to re-up on a new contract when his contract's up. He's kind of said that he's always leaning towards, when his contract's up, going back to Germany for a couple more years and then like retiring, right? So you got to know that he wants to always be in a position where his plan for what he has in mind continues into the last few years of this contract, should it be the time that he decides, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and head on back. He's a man with a plan, always is. So he's going to go after some guys that he feels like next year the year after, are going to fit his plan and keep such a high level of success. I trust the guy, and I've got to keep trusting the guy.
Yeah.
If he says, yeah, we want Alabama, we want him now, I'll be like, okay, you spend that money on him, then forget center backs. Always hated that position. Get him out of here. Oh man. All right, let's look ahead at the next two matches that are coming up over the course of the next week. Really? Are we about to hit the start of November? Good grief.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So sadly enough, we have to go up against stupid West Ham this Saturday, on Halloween, no less. All Hallows Eve. And then, of course, next Tuesday, up against Atlanta United. Just kidding. Going up against Atalanta. Interesting matches that should not be as interesting as they are, but for whatever reason, West Ham is kind of like surprisingly okay, entertaining of a team at least. Does a lot of like scoring weird, amazing goals, like Antonio's freaking bike the other weekend. That was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, and I loved it. So West Ham, for whatever reason, kind of doing okay, but always just kind of that like annoying level of they're not really good, but you kind of just have to deal with the fact that right now, for whatever reason, they're scoring goals, and it's stupid. Atalanta was, of course, a surprise darling of Serie A last year, locking down a Champions League spot. Obviously, we're playing against them, but almost title contenders for most of the time there. Almost were able to win a Serie A title. But this season, maybe not off to the best of starts, already losing 2 matches. I don't know. I haven't paid close attention, so I don't know if this is a drop in form for them or if it's just kind of how things started and they'll not really indicative of where things are going. But we've got choices to make over the next 2 matches in terms of who suits up and how we play. What are you expecting us to do to handle these next few matches now that we have gotten Allison back and maybe Fabinho's injury isn't quite as bad as we thought it might have been? So maybe we aren't as nervous about that. What do you think we do to prepare for these matches?
We hope and pray that Matip and Thiago are fit first and foremost.
Yep.
It'd be great to have them back. I mean, Reece Williams has looked pretty good coming in, but you don't want to have to rely on him just yet in his career. So it would be great to have someone else to be able to play next to Joe Gomez for these 2 matches at least. And I'm expecting that we don't get that many people back, even some of the other people that have been injured or sick. So I could fully expect something to look a bit like the Sheffield match where we go out with that kind of lineup and play in maybe that style just because that's all we have and those are the only people we can play. We can't really mix it up too much because of that. And it's a bit, it's interesting because approaching these 2 games, you would think like the free scoring informed team would be the one that we're playing in the Champions League that won multiple games by 6-7 goals last season, but that's not the case. I mean, they were lucky to come back against Ajax yesterday in the Champions League. I mean, they're clearly not what they were last season just yet. And I mean, in the past 2-3 seasons, they've taken a little bit to establish themselves and get up to speed, but because of the way things are now, it's taking a little bit longer. And West Ham seem to be rallying around David Moyes and his COVID and his custard, and they're ready to fight to the death for him and refuse to lose. So we're gonna have to dig deep, and we're gonna have to grind it out, and it's probably gonna rely a lot on Allison, given the fact that our defense is going to be exhausted, and our midfield's going to be depleted and exhausted, and our front three are going to just get the crap kicked out of them all the time by West Ham. So that one's going to be tough, but the good news is that we're joint top right now, even despite that weird match that we're not going to speak about beyond referring to it as that weird match. We're still in a good spot. A win against a team like West Ham, who've taken points off of pretty good teams in recent weeks, would be fantastic for us. And then see who all can still walk on Tuesday and be able to play in that match and see what happens when the game is a lot more open, and can we participate in the openness and take the chances and go blow for blow in that way. So I'm anticipating 2 wins, but it's going to be sweaty.
Yeah, it is. And it's the stupidest thing in the world that I'm more worried about a team that is currently 12th in the Premier League than a team that finished 3rd in Serie A last year. That's the stupidest thing to me. And yet, here we are. West Ham is a bizarrely... I don't want to say fortunate. Fortunate's not the right word for it. They're just pesky. They're a pesky club right now, taking points where they probably should not be taking some points, like you just said. So it's just kind of an annoying thing. What's been working for them? I mean, besides like the obvious, for whatever reason, Michail Antonio can all of a sudden go on a goal-scoring streak where he just is the hottest player in the league for like a week and a half and then cools off. Like, besides that, like, what seems to be even working for them so that they're able to take points from some of the bigger names that are supposed to just run rampant over them? Can you figure anything out?
They seem more unified in their approach, that's for sure. They seem to all now be aware of what they're supposed to do and what the other people are supposed to do and how to work within that. They're also not relying on ancient injury-prone players as much as they have in recent seasons, so that's helping. It also helps that teams are not taking their chances against them. It's not like they've been flawless at the back and locked teams out. It's just people haven't scored against them as many times as they should have. And then, it's like you mentioned, Antonio, Bowen, especially, those two are really in form and scaring defenses, and just their directness and their ability to be in the right places at the right times is leading to goals because no one can defend anymore. Although things are kind of leveling out a little bit, there's not as many goals, but still they're taking their chances when other teams are not.
I have a kind of a love right now for Michail Antonio. I love a swole guy, and he's one of those guys I don't think gets enough credit for his workout routine, his workout regimen. It's crazy to me to look at their last several Premier League matches and see that they have beaten Wolves 4-0, beaten Leicester 3-0, and then had these draws against Tottenham and, of course, against Man City this past weekend that are supposed to be clubs that, are supposed to be on the up and up, are supposed to be, in terms of, like, Tottenham's supposed to be like, oh, this is, finally, Jose's really in control of this club. Roll my eyes any harder. So, and of course, City is like a shell of what City typically is right now, but City's still City. They still have Pep, regardless of whether people think he's washed up as a manager over there or something. They still have all that, and West Ham is able to rise to the occasion. So, what does Liverpool have to do to stay steady, to stay the course right now, to stay top of the league? What do we have to do to avoid that sort of slip up that other teams have recently come across when it comes to West Ham, especially with Atalanta coming up? And then why don't you drop some scoreline predictions on those matches, if you feel so bold, sir?
I'll do my best, but because first and foremost, what we have to do is not pull any muscles.
Yeah.
We can't be relying. I mean, we had an 18-year-old with no first team minutes at all, Jake Kane, on the bench against Midland yesterday, because we're at that point where we're having to dip into the academy. I mean, we very well may see more of them on the bench in these next two matches, but we just need bodies back because our players are very good and they need to be able to contribute by being able to walk properly and run and stop and do all the things that are required
Right.
to play in this team.
Basic human movement. Yeah, that would be great to be able to keep that up.
Exactly. And we will have to take our chances because, as I just mentioned, the teams that are dropping points against West Ham, they are getting the opportunities to score and they're not taking them. Luckily, we have very good attackers and can hopefully do that, but we will have to keep it as tight as possible and hope that Allison plays well. And then, just not get sucked into any weirdness because weirdness keeps happening in the league, and
Yeah, it
we
does.
try to avoid that. Atalanta, similar story, but we should have a little bit more freedom because it's going to be a little bit more end-to-end, a little bit more open. A lot of their goals conceded are down to just them making stupid errors.
Again, Atalanta is more vulnerable than West Ham right now.
Yeah, it's super weird. And they've had some injuries. They've been missing Ilicic, who's been one of their best players for the past few seasons. But it's more than that. They're having just a slump. And
Yeah.
we are playing them at a very opportune time for us to be in an opportune situation. So I'm expecting a fair amount of goals in that one. I'm thinking a 2-1 win over West Ham and a 3-2 win over Atalanta.
Oh, dropping 2 goals to Atlanta United.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm still I'm unsure. I'm still nervous about. No, it's not that I'm unsure. We are clearly a better club than West Ham, but I'm just kind of still weirdly uncomfortable with the way that things are going with them right now. That being said, we were probably supposed to be more nervous about Everton, right? And obviously super unfortunate, unlucky, and sketchy performances from Everton led to that being a draw when it should have been a victory. We just were flat out better. Sheffield, it was weird, but we were flat out better. So right now, I just feel like as good as West Ham has seemed lately, they have not come up against an opponent that is flat out better. Because, Tottenham and City are going to have the name recognition, but Tottenham and City are not flat out better than West Ham right now. And I think we still obviously are. So, I feel fine with agreeing with your 2-1 against West Ham, but I'm going to say a 3-1 against Atalanta. I don't think that we. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to change that to a 2-0. I think we get another Champions League clean sheet, and we have no reason to have done so. That's that's how I'm feeling about that. So, okay. Whew. Those are my predictions. I feel better now that I've actually said it out loud and gotten it off my chest. And maybe I shouldn't, but I do.
I think that's just the pressure being relieved from the acid reflux that is caused by the Little Caesars.
Exactly. The Little Caesars has calmed down within my esophagus here, so I'm good to go. Now that I've said that, Saturday's going to roll around and, the match against West Ham is going to come back, and all of a sudden my stomach's going to be like, remember that Little Caesars earlier in the week? I got you now. Oh. So, whoo-wee. Man, what a weird season it is already. I mean, just between the fact that Everton is still top of the table, joint top of the table, top on goal differential is bizarre. Aston Villa is still sitting in third. We talked some after that weird, bizarre Villa match that we will never actually discuss ever again. But you and I talked a little bit about how it just seems like this is going to be one of those years reminiscent maybe of the Leicester City championship from a few years ago, where the league drops back down to reality for a bit, and it's not a first team to 100 wins, sort of nonsensical type of thing like it has been the past few years. And it's still shaping out that way. It really does look that way, where we are going to see a lot of teams for the immediate future in the Premier League be very, very close to each other in points. I'm just hoping that we continue to be at the top of that. That'd be the best part. That'd be very nice. Very nice. So, all right, Alex, I appreciate, as always, your wisdom and insight, and most importantly, your knowledge of the Bundesliga here on this podcast. Any closing thoughts you want to drop on us before we say goodbye?
I think I'm just flat out. I'm just out of thoughts.
That's it. We're done. I mean, you already had all of your Bundesliga talk earlier. Speaking about our possible transfers. So I get it. You got nothing else to add. So that's it. All right. Thank you, Alex. I am your friend Joseph Craven, and thank you, listener, for tuning in to this episode of You'll Never Talk Alone, or viewer, because we did actually put this episode up on Yale YouTube once again, which we don't often do. But if you're listening to us and you want to actually see us in action, then feel free to join us on YouTube. In particular, we have, I don't mean to brag, but been pretty consistent about recording on the same night of the week this season. So on Wednesday evenings, we've been recording our episodes, and looks like we will have an opportunity to do a little bit more live recording. So if you want to jump in and join us on that, look us up on YouTube. Don't look up Anfield South, who's a YouTube channel that stole our logo for a little bit of time. Which is kind of an odd move on their part, but that's okay, I guess. I discovered that recently. I don't even know if I told you that I discovered that, but I discovered that recently.
That's very weird.
Yeah, they did a segment for a little while in which they referred to it as You'll Never Talk Alone. And it's clear that they searched for You'll Never Talk Alone, saw our little YNTA logo, and downloaded it. So some of their videos have that as a thumbnail. And I kind of just want to comment on one of them sometime and be like, hey, man, nice logo. Where'd you get it?
Looks great.
Did you take it straight out of my Photoshop? Yeah. Anyway. I'm sure they do good content. I don't actually care. I just thought it was hilarious to accidentally discover that one day.
We've made it.
Yeah, exactly. People are infringing on our stuff. Anyway, thanks for tuning in to this episode. We always enjoy having a chance to talk about the Reds with you. And if you've got any feedback, any thoughts, and any ideas that you want to toss at us, be sure to follow us on Twitter and tweet at us at YNTA Podcast up on the Twitter. So I'm your friend Joseph Craven. That's Alex Lebel. As always, let's turn it over to our close personal friend and life coach, Andrew Ainsworth, to sign us out. Andrew, take it away.
Thanks, Coach.
Coach. I'm only going to call him Coach on the show from here on out. I just want you to be aware of that. He won't understand why, but I'm going to do it.